Dr. Eppel, welcome.
Thank you.
What are the tools that are most efficient for dealing with overthinking or ruminating when people just can't seem to let go of the thing that's the stress, or thinking about not the stress in their body, but the thing that caused the stress, the difficult conversation, the thing that irked them on social media or in their personal life or professional life or simply out in the world?
So I wish I had one answer, but I'm going to say lots of strategies tackle that. And so in those three bins, one are top-down strategies of awareness and things that we can say to ourselves, since our beliefs and mindsets can really help us release stress, view stress more positively. The second bucket is not that the mind changes the body, but the body changes the mind. And those are the set of strategies that you tend to use the most, right? We're working stress out of the body, we're metabolizing it, we're burning it up, and we get relief. It changes our, amygdala activity and moves us to more an experiential state where we're more in our somatosensory cortex. And then the third bucket is change the scene, just getting away from all the stress triggers that we have in our office or in the city, and being in an environment that we find calming. It might even be just be a corner of the house, but implanting what I call safety signals. We're just these animals that are conditioned to signals, whether we're aware of it or not. So having things like comforting pets, pictures, smells, music, why not? We need those. They help. They add up.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a small physical space, or I suppose it could be a large physical space, but for most people who don't have the resources, some small pre-designated physical space that represents a safe zone, and creating, or I should say populating that safe zone with things, as you said, as a visual neuroscientist originally, I guess now I study stress, but as a visual neuroscientist, we know that photographs are extremely powerful cues for the memory system, especially actual physical photographs. And I believe there's some work on this, that if people keep a photograph of something that draws positive memories, that photograph actually, they keep it with them, that actually can be a positive cue for alleviating stress and just enhancing mood. This is probably done less so nowadays because everyone keeps things on their phones and it's just kind of a scroll through. But in any event, when we talk about stress, it's clear that there's short-term, medium-term, long-term stress. You studied all these different forms of stress. If you would be so kind as to just give us an overview of the different forms of stress, how we can learn to recognize those. And then I'd love to transition from there into talking about some of the work that you've been doing on stress and stress-related eating and stress and how it relates to aging in particular. But before we do that, to make sure everyone's on the same page, if you could just pepper our minds with knowledge about stress in all its beautiful and not so beautiful forms.
So when we think about stress, we usually think feeling stress, reporting stress, and that's important. What our body is doing is also important, and it's not always related to our mind. So measuring levels of the nervous system and how vigilant we are is another way that we can understand stress. And that's particularly important and interesting because that's how stress gets under the skin, and we might not be aware. We might not report stress, but we're still holding tension and being much more sympathetically dominated, meaning that our body is vigilant and scanning for cues, and we don't feel safe. And so we're mobilizing a lot more energy than we need to. And stress is so expensive to the body. The stress response uses a tremendous amount of energy, ATP, that's made by our mitochondria. And if we have that kind of vigilant stress response on all day, we're just going to feel exhausted. And we all feel exhausted at this stage of the kind of long shadow of the pandemic. And it's really no mystery because we're not good at turning the stress response off. And that's what we want to really focus on, is understanding we need to mount a big stress response to cope with things when we need extra energy. But then we can actually let our body relax and we can turn it off. And that's where the rumination comes in. We want to catch ourselves rehearsing and reliving stress or worrying about the next thing and saying, right now, I'm safe. And, there's the breathing strategies. I'm right with you where those are the most direct and fast path to reducing stress in the body, period.